The next difficult condition, Max, it's the wind. So now there are various possibilities here. First of all, Max, the first one. If there is wind in preparation for your competition, what will you do if you know it's going to be windy today?
The weather forecast is definitely the first thing you can start with first thing in the morning. The next thing is the cloud cover. If it's completely sunny, that influences the wind, especially when it's changeable. And then you have to look at the wind beforehand.
That's crucial.
What does it do? How strong is it? Is it getting stronger over time? Especially when it gets stronger and stronger, especially when you shoot in the morning. 3 positions take a while, and it usually gets stronger as time goes on. And here too, the sling positions have to be completed quickly, because that's when you have the least wind. And it's also important that everyone has the wind. So you shouldn't worry about it. It's windy today, I can't shoot today, or any other nonsense. Instead, everyone has the wind, everyone has to deal with it, and everyone has the same conditions. It's just a matter of how you prepare for it and how you deal with it.
Well, that was quite a lot. So psychologically, the wind is blowing for everyone. The attitude towards it, the wind, it can help me. Under certain circumstances, I can leave opponents behind me that I wouldn't be able to handle in dream conditions if I accept the conditions. Of course, Max said to check what the wind is doing beforehand. There might be a run beforehand. Then maybe we'll sit down and have a look at what the other athletes are doing. How are they dealing with the wind? What effects does it have on the others who are shooting in the previous round?
Especially on larger shooting range, you always have someone shooting into the wind, and then you can see where the shot is. And you usually know roughly how good the athlete actually is. How good are his normal shots? And how far is the shot outside his normal range? So how far was it carried out by the wind? That's always very interesting and helpful for one's own competition.
So it's about looking at the effects of the wind before shooting and also afterwards in the preparation and sighting time and also during the competition. You have to determine the effects of the wind. How big are the effects? Does the shot hit the far 9, so a 9.0, 8.9, 9.1? Or does it go into the low 10? How big are they? Or does it even go into the 8? Or does it even go into the 7? Is it gusty? Is it quite constant? All these things. The effects are actually the most important thing. And there are a few tools to determine the effects. Max, what are the tools you use to assess the effects? What do you use as points of reference?
Well, one thing is the wind vanes, of course. That's the first one. Then what's interesting is the grass on the ground. And at many stands there are also partitions in between made of fabric or whatever material. You can also see the wind nets there, how much they bulge.
Spots.
And the last point is, of course, when the wind hits your body. If it almost knocks you over, then of course you should not shoot. You should keep your finger off the trigger. But these are the main points to watch out for.
There's rain in the bushes, how the rain is dripping. If the
Yes.
rain comes at a 540-degree angle, then you know what's going on out there. So first you have to be able to assess what effects the wind has. And then I have to determine my strategy. There are different strategies. There are certainly 2 or 3 strategies. So one strategy would be, of course, to wait for wind breaks. Of course, this only works when there are wind breaks. I have to look a bit beforehand, of course, and then to shoot in the wind breaks. That would be a strategy. But if there are few wind breaks, then I'll probably have to make sure that I have similar wind situations. We then always say a wind corridor of a certain strength where the wind vanes are correspondingly similar vane positions, and then only shot in such positions. Of course, there are also other strategies.
For example, holding a head. But that would only be experts only, I say, because it's a really high art to master that. You have to be able to pull the trigger cleanly and assess the wind so well that you can still shoot well by holding a head. So that's always associated with a bit of risk.
In other words, Max, then you hold in the 9 or 8 left if...
When the wind comes from the left. That's right. So these are always the diagonals where you have to point. From the athlete's point of view, the wind drives the cartridge, it turns, it gets a bit faster, and of course it blows out to the left. In other words, the shot goes up to the left, not quite as high as it usually does to the left. And vice versa, when the wind comes from left to right, the ball is slowed down a little in its rotation, it slows down, sinks a little, and is naturally carried out to the right by the wind from left to right. In other words, the diagonal to the right is under. And you have to keep ahead accordingly, so either you hold on the left, slightly high, or either slightly low on the right.
Yes, the angle of the cartridge plays a decisive role, so you have about 20% of the lateral offset. You have a height offset, but as Max has already said, this is a technique for experts only. I think the decisive factor in assessing the wind conditions is to see the effects of the wind in relation to your own mistakes, to see your own quality. And the bigger my own mistakes are, the less I will pay attention to the wind. In other words, the reduction of the wind increases the more mistakes I make. So it's quite clear that the better the athlete, the more you have to pay attention to the wind than compared to the less good athletes. That's why we've already had good success at many European championships, even with juniors, when we've reduced the whole wind thing to a few points and concentrated on our own technically good shooting. That should be the main message in the wind. With this in mind, I wish you good training and seek out the difficult conditions.